it wasn't a month ago. We talked about Sean Couturier, the new captain of the Philadelphia Flyers. He epitomized what it meant to be a Philadelphia Flyer. Hardworking, salty earth type player, does everything really well. Not a very showy player, Tim. Just showed up to work with his lunch pail and did his job and threw some points on the board. And the prototypical captain that John Tortorella likes, a Ryan Callahan type captain, who we had with the New York Rangers, those types of players. Well, lo and behold, Torts didn't get that memo. He healthy scratched his captain last night when the Philadelphia Flyers faced off against Toronto Maple Leafs. And there were some interesting comments before the game, after the game, a few weeks before the game, all leading up to this. And there were some things I didn't realize that happened that maybe spurred on this incident. But just to kind of go back a few steps, Sean Couturier has been in a little bit of a slump. He, had a good first start to his season, but in his last, 27 games, he's scored 1 goal. And he has 1 assist in the last 9 games. To compound that, he's been eating minuses. And Tortorella prides himself on a defensive-first mentality. You have to be a part of the team. You're not in it for yourself. I don't care how many points you get as long as we get the win. I was in the locker room when he would rip apart Marian Gaborik, the most talented guy on the planet, some would say, and he would scream at him, "Gabby, you got to get in the lane. You got to get in the lane." Because Gabby wasn't getting in the lane from a Shea Weber slap shot. Gabby's like, "I'm not blocking that." Torts is like, "Well, you're not going to play." So this guy demands everybody does that. And if you're Sean Couturier, who has an eighth of a talent as Marian Gaborik did, and you're not doing the things that Torts wants you to do, well, he's going to send a message. And the message was sent last night when he benched, healthy scratched, his captain for the first time all season long. So there's more information on this. But first, I want to get your take, Tim. What do you think of Torts benching his captain?
Well, right away you go to this being the player's not playing good enough, and this is a message-sending thing to both the player and the rest of the team. Because last night's game was a must-win, as is basically every game for these teams on the fringe of the playoffs and the wild card. Entering this game, Philadelphia had fallen out of third in the Metro, and they were in the wild card spot. So this was like they needed this win. It was a very, very tight race. Detroit's right there, Tampa, like all these teams are barking at the door. And so they needed this win. So it wasn't just a matter of like sending a message for the sake of it, because you know that if you take out one of your best players and you lose, that's on you, the coach now. You know what I mean? And so Couturier spoke before the game and he was very frustrated. And there's a lot that goes into this. And we're going to spend a few minutes on it because there's just so much. It's just rich with like great little quotes and just information that makes it such a fascinating and I think fun story. But Couturier said, quote, "I've been putting the work in for a while. I've been struggling, but I've been working on my game. And it's frustrated the way that I've been treated around here lately, but it is what it is." Frustrating the way that I've been treated around here lately. That's not mincing words. And this is a guy who's like basically never been in the press or the media for anything that he said. Like this, like you said before, this is a quiet, like show up and do your job type player. And he's not an outspoken captain. And to say that the way that I've been treated around here lately, what's lately? He didn't play last year. So what's lately? Is it this new coach? Let's talk about that. What do you think? What did that quote sound like?
So if I'm putting myself in John Tortorella's shoes, I see this quote and it just infuriates me, because you want a player who is tough and you want a player who just does his job, and you don't want someone who whines about, "Oh, you're being treated unfairly." What the heck does that mean? You think you're better than everybody else on the team? I guarantee you Tort saw this quote and it just made his blood boil. And it gives him fuel to bench him even more, because he's not drinking the Kool-Aid. He's still worried about himself. And Torts himself, I'm sure he heard this. I'm sure he heard this quote before the game. And so the Flyers go out, and the worst thing to happen for Sean Couturier, the worst thing that could happen, is the Flyers win this game versus a very good Toronto team who's been playing really well. Flyers go out and win 4-3. And John Tortorella doesn't answer any questions about Couturier, because the people are asking, "Well, what were you trying to this and that? What were you trying to do with Sean Couturier?" But he does say this little nugget. They go, "Well, what was your success due to tonight? Why do you think you guys won?" In typical Torts, he goes, "It was a lack of dead weight." A lack of dead weight. So he dodges every single question about Couturier. Oh, you and Sean, have you guys talked? Have you heard what Sean said? What's going on? Are you guys okay? He just, no comment, no comment, typical Torts style. But then he goes, well, the reason we won tonight was because of lack of dead weight. Isn't that funny? Like, it's honestly, it's very funny. And then everybody knows what he's talking about. He's talking about Sean Couturier. He's dead weight. Isn't that great, Tim?
It's like there's so much happening here. It's like a game, like chess, right? And you know that Torts wasn't ready, wouldn't have taken this public the way that it was if he hadn't have seen that quote from Couturier, and Couturier fires the first shot saying, I don't like the way I've been treated around here. And Torts is like, all right, load the cannon. We're firing back. And then he fires back the shot across the bow. It says, lack of dead weight is the key to the reason that we won this game against a good team in a must-win game. And they were led by Tippett and Morgan Frost, I think, at 2 points each. So if you're Coots, does this, before we get into there's a theory being pushed around about where all this is coming from. But before we get into that, is this, how do I want to word this? If you're a captain or any player in the team, when the coach calls this scratching you the lack of dead weight, is that irreparable? Is this something you can get over and mend that relationship? Or this man, those are shots fired. This is personal now.
I don't know. Different people would take it differently. I'm hoping that Tortorella is using this as a motivation factor, trying to get Couturier to kind of improve his game, whatever that means. But for me personally, that would be hard. That would be hard to kind of come back from. Oh, you think I'm dead weight? Oh, okay. That sucks. That's tough. And I was a fourth line guy who my longest contract was 2 years. You're talking about a guy who just signed last year an 8-year, $62 million deal. You're calling your franchise player, your captain, who will be the captain for the next 7 years, dead weight. You're not calling Nick Delorier dead weight or Garnet Hathaway or someone who's expendable. No, you're calling your captain, the guy who makes the most money on your team and will make the most money on your team for the next 7 years, dead weight. You just healthy scratched your highest paid player. It's bonkers. It's absolutely wild. And that's the thing. You're not scratching a guy who is like a Nail Yakupov type, or a guy who's just out there to solely score goals. That's not who Sean Couturier is. He's a meat and potatoes guy. He's going to win you draws. He's going to block shots. He's going to be physical. He's going to play responsibly. So you're benching him. That's crazy. That doesn't happen. Throw him on the fourth line. No, we're gonna gas him. He's out. He's done. He's dead weight. And then you beat Toronto. Oh my goodness. Torts, after that game, I bet you he went back to his locker room, his little change, and he was so happy. I nailed it. I'm the man. You know what I mean? How good must he feel? Toronto's a good team, and they just were. And obviously, Toronto, I think, hit 6 or 7 posts. But he must feel pretty good. And Couturier must have went home going, damn it. How do we beat the Leafs? Son of a gun. But there was some back history, Tim, that I didn't know about. Yeah. Behind this whole naming of Sean Couturier as a captain. Go through that, because I don't think a lot of people know about this.
Well, there's a theory that draws from information that we have over the last year or so, and this theory was put out there by Flyers Nation, which is one of the more popular Flyers accounts on Twitter or X. And basically his message and theory is that the naming Couturier captain was not Torts' idea. It came down from above, whether that was ownership or Briere or somebody else. It wasn't his choice. They didn't want to have a captain. And here's why. Torts was very adamant in black and white in print and press conferences last year, including last season earlier, that there would be no captain during this season, 23-24 season, with quotes. Here's the quote. There won't be a captain next year, so you don't have to ask me next year. That was in March 2023.
It's pretty black and white.
Here's the next quote. there will not be a captain next year. And the third quote references him specifically. Whether Coots is here or not, he was injured at the time. Whether Coots is here or not, there's no captain next year. It's just the way we're going to go about it here. That was a year ago, less than a year ago. And so obviously Couturier was named captain, and I doubt Torts is the kind of guy that changes his mind. He specifically spoke about next year. He was thinking about a year or two in the future.
He's so great.
Couturier is not his guy, apparently. Well, if you read into this, because I think there's probably something here. And if these guys are clashing, remember Couturier's quote, "It's frustrating the way that I've been treated around here." These guys are butting heads, and apparently Couturier was not Torts' pick, and he's not his guy, which means there's something here.
I love John Tortorella. I know I had a run-in with him, and we had our differences, but you have to respect a guy who just shoots from the hip and tells you like it is. Like it's so refreshing. You don't have to read between the lines. You don't have to just wonder and read the tea leaves and go, "Oh, is he dropping a hint here? Does that mean something else? Is this an innuendo?" No, he tells you exactly what he's thinking, and that's it. And he's not changing his mind. And he told us last year. So obviously Danny Briere had other issues. He wanted the captain. He wanted someone to be the face of the franchise. They were trading everybody. They got rid of Giroux. They got rid of Voracek. They wanted a fresh start. They needed somebody to fill that void, and that was Sean Couturier, longest tenured Philadelphia Flyer. Everybody loves him, coming back from an injury, a feel-good story. Let's give him the captain. Torts like, no, I don't want to give him the captain. We're going to give it to him anyways. Sometimes you don't get that decision if you're the coach, unfortunately. And they give him the C, and Torts is like, I don't like that. I don't like that. It's like Moneyball. When Billy Beane is a GM, he's like, you're going to play the team I put there. And the coach's like, I manage my team. I don't care. And he trades his all-star first baseman, Pena, or whoever it was. He's like, well, you can't play him now. I just traded him to the White Sox. So what? And they're like, oh, Couturier is the captain. Oh, yeah, I'm going to healthy scratch him. Give me the captain from the press box. That's going to be a good spot for him.
Captain Hot Dog.
Captain Hot Dogs. That's his new name. So what it boils down for me is it's a pride issue. And pride's a funny thing because John Tortorella has an immense amount of pride. He wants to be right. He has that cachet. And he deserves to have, a lot of say in how his team works. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's been successful in multiple cities. He's coached this team to a playoff position where they rightfully shouldn't be in a playoff position right now based on what's happened this year. Their starting goaltender, Carter Hart, embroiled in that controversy in Canada, just cut from the team. Trading away all their players, putting together a ragtag group of guys, and they're in a really good spot to get into the playoffs, Tim. So he deserves a lot of accolades. Naming a captain he doesn't like, so he's in a tough spot. But at what point do you just have to take a back seat and say, am I doing what's best for the team? You don't think we could throw Sean Couturier on the fourth line, third line, send a message that way, and say, you know what, we're going to cut your minutes. Instead of being on the first line or the second line, we're going to put you with Delorier. We're going to put you with Hathaway. I just want you to be meat and potatoes, go out, hit people, be responsible defensively, and then you're going to work yourself back up into a more minutes role. Maybe we'll put you on the second power play unit if you deserve it. Or does his pride get in the way? And he says, you know what? I didn't want this guy as my captain. I'm going to send a message to Briere. I'm going to send a message. Who is it? Is the CEO or the president Eddie Olchuk or who was the guy who worked for TNT?
Yeah, it was Olchuk. Yeah,
the president. It was not Eddie. It's Jones. Someone. Anyways, is he sending a message that way, saying you guys didn't, have me in this discussion? I didn't want him as a captain. Is it at the cost of the team? Because I feel like Sean Couturier is a pretty darn good player. You know what I mean? He has put up some really good points this year. Yes, he's in a slump, but if you do make those playoffs, who would you rather have out there? Ryan Poehling or Sean Couturier? Noah Cates or Sean Couturier? It's Sean Couturier. The guy's a good player. He's a proven NHL. I'm not going to call him a star. He's a valuable player. So at what point does your pride get the better of you? Where you just like, I'm going to make a point. I'm going to, start throwing barbs. And I know I'm right, but I could really ruin the relationship with my captain and just scuttle this whole team. Because Coots is, I'm guessing, popular in the room. He's been around for a long time, and he has the ear of a lot of the players. So you risk fracturing the locker room completely. absolutely fracturing it just to be right, just to prove a point, to say, yeah, see, we won. I was right. He's not my captain. I don't need him. I'm the coach. So at some point, I think Torts maybe goes a little too far to prove a point, to say, I'm the man. I make the decisions. This is what's best for the team. I can do it. Yeah, maybe you win the battle, you lose the war type deal with John Tortorella. So, early results are great. They need to iron this out, and they need to iron it out fast. You need this guy to be on the line in the lineup and be playing well, because he's in your life for the next 7 years. As far as I know, John Tortorella does not have a 7-year contract. Sean Couturier does. And I don't think any GM is, clamoring to get Sean Couturier on their team, a 31-year-old player with a huge history of injuries, and he's making $7.75 million a year. So they got to make this work, and they got to make it work fast. But to answer the question, I don't think it was a good idea. He scratched him. I think it's great for us to talk about. But boy, oh boy, they need to go to couples therapy. Sit down in the room and just, hash things out. This is bad.
Now it's like, okay, when does he dress him again? Is he back in next game? And where in the lineup do you put him? Like you said, do you put him back where he belongs in the top 6, or do you still kind of punish him by putting him in the 4th line, or do you sit him while you keep winning? You probably do that, right? If you keep winning, you keep him in the press box. But again, like to your point, you're not a better team with Sean Couturier watching with a hot dog. You know what I mean? Like he helps your team. And even if you feel like he needs to be better, put him on the 4th line. That way, you can still have him in a shutdown role if you need to. You can still have him take a key face-off late in the game if you need to. You can move him up the lineup if you need to. Your team's better with him on the ice. And the other question is, if these two guys can't coexist, which I don't think we'll get to this point, but people are saying, like, which one should Briere as GM prioritize? Like, Torts is making everything happen correctly right now, but to your point, he doesn't have the longevity that you've committed to Sean Couturier. So who would be the odd man out? Who has to go? I don't think we'll get to that point. We're talking about, grown-ups here, but the question's got to be asked.
I think they need to smooth it out. They will coexist. It seemed like Sean Couturier, I know he made that comment, it's frustrated the way I've been treated, but he also says, I got to just work through it. And that's all I can control. So maybe he'll take that route and just get on the ice, work his bag off, get back on the ice, because that's what Tortorella will respect. He'll respond to that. But I tell you what, if he gets on the ice and starts loafing around in pregame skate or the next day's practice, Torts will ruin him. Absolutely ruin him. The one thing he doesn't respect or respond to is players who are entitled. And if he gets on that ice and he just is bitching and moaning and complaining and shooting pucks into the boards, Torts will bury him and he won't see the ice again. That I know for a fact. And you look at the Flyers schedule, Murderer's Row the next couple days. In the next week and a half, they got the Carolina Hurricanes, Boston Bruins, Florida Panthers, New York Rangers. That's their next 4 games.
Wow.
And then you add the Leafs before that. Arguably the 5 top teams in the NHL. And so this is a make or break stretch for the Philadelphia Flyers. And if you don't have Sean Couturier in that stretch, it's tough. You need this guy in the lineup. It eases up a little bit after that, but these next 4 games will dictate their season. That's how close it is in the Eastern Conference right now for these guys. And the Red Wings are playing well. The Washington Capitals are playing really well. They'll lose that 3rd spot in the Atlantic really, really fast. Or it's not the Atlantic, it's the Metropolitan or whatever division it is. So it's fun to talk about, Tim.